I met a human once. Just once. And I pray you never do. In my species, the Zarkal, fear is not a concept we indulge in. Emotion is treated like corrosion, a weakness to be purged through discipline and neurocalibration. We operate on logic, clarity, precision. We record what we observe, and we never assume. That's what makes this difficult. Because when I recount what happened, I can't explain it within any known system of causality. I can only tell you this: if you value your sanity, your soul, or whatever binding force you think keeps the universe predictable, avoid humans. The galaxy is vast and mostly empty. In the fringes where regulations fade, things slip through. Rumors, mostly, whispers of flesh that survived the void, of creatures that laughed inside singularities. But those are tales told in low signal bands by dying traders. I dismissed them. Until I met one. At the time, I was posted as an observation coordinator orbiting Moon 6 in the Seldrix system, a nothing place, barely on any map. A dead mining moon left behind by the Veil, who strip planets and vanish. We detected an emergency beacon, standard frequency, automated. No biological signature. Protocol required inspection. I led the away team myself. 5 soldiers, 2 drones, and myself. We boarded the station without resistance. It looked abandoned, but not aged. Equipment was intact, lights flickered as if someone had only recently departed. But the silence was unnatural. Not the stillness of an empty room, the quiet of something listening back. There were signs of violence. Not war, not piracy. Something personal. Scorch marks too specific, furniture melted not by heat but by directed pressure. One wall had a handprint, not pressed into dust or stained, but sunk into the metal like clay. I remember staring at it and feeling the first flicker of something alien, not external, but inside me. Doubt. The deeper we went, the more disjointed our instruments became. Gravity shifted in waves. Magnetic compasses spun. One soldier reported hearing breathing through his comms. We rotated frequencies. It continued. Another claimed something whispered his name, though no one else heard it. Then came the corridor with the single door. It was sealed but unmarked. The drones detected motion inside. One heartbeat. Just one. Not a species match. Not anything catalogued. When we opened it, there was no attack. No sound. Just a figure, standing in the center of the room. Humanoid, tall, unmoving. The light caught on a cracked visor. The suit it wore was archaic, patched with unfamiliar alloys and melted plastics. But it stood like it belonged there, like we were intruding. We aimed weapons. It did not move. Our lead soldier stepped forward. The human spoke. Only 2 words. Don't follow. The translator failed. Not in function, it didn't crash. It stopped. Like the software refused to interpret the sound. We heard it, clearly, in our own minds. Each of us described the same phrase after, in our own language. It had spoken to each of us directly, bypassing the equipment. A soldier fired. There was no explosion. The shot never reached the target. Instead, the projectile melted midair, particles unraveling like threads in wind. No heat signature, no energy feedback. Then the shooter screamed, his rifle liquefied in his hands, consuming flesh as if it was remembering the act of burning. Still, the human didn't move. The room went dark. No flicker, no transition, just total blackness, as if absence had replaced reality. We shouted commands, recalibrated HUDs, activated emergency lights. When they returned, the human was gone. So was one of the soldiers. No trace. No energy residue. No biological remains. Just one thing left behind, a smear on the wall, in perfect handwriting, in our language. 4 words. You were warned. Leave. Our ship's AI began malfunctioning during extraction. Files related to the mission corrupted. Sensor logs deleted themselves. Backup units stored on isolated drives suffered inexplicable cascading failures. I attempted to manually record my statement during debrief. The console shut down mid-sentence and rebooted with a blank core. I submitted the report anyway. It was rejected. Command claimed our sensors had encountered a temporal mirage, an echo from a previous era. They erased the incident from official records. 2 of my team were reassigned, 1 resigned and vanished. The 4th, well, he never left the station. Not that Command would admit it. But I remember. I remember the way it stood still, as if movement belonged to lesser beings. I remember how it spoke directly to the parts of us machines couldn't reach. I remember how the station wasn't destroyed, it was warned. And we didn't listen. So now I speak to you, whoever you are, wherever you are, if you ever see one, if you ever find a human, do not greet it. Do not test it. Do not follow. Because I met a human once. Just once. And that was enough. The interior of the station was a labyrinth of shadows and malfunction. Lights flickered in erratic pulses, casting long, jittery silhouettes. Our equipment began losing sync, nothing major at first, just minor calibration delays and sensor echo. But within minutes, the anomalies compounded. Mass readings shifted despite no structural change. Static crept into our comms, not random, but rhythmic, like breathing. The soldiers maintained formation, but I saw it in their posture, tension they didn't voice. The corridor leading toward the reactor core pulsed with residual energy far exceeding baseline. Gravity there wavered just enough to disorient us. But there was something else. Presence. Not heat. Not mass. Something unnamed. Our systems detected movement 20 meters ahead. A single biosignature, faint, erratic, fading in and out as if phasing. It didn't match any known physiology. Not animal. Not synthetic. No response to active scans. Then it appeared. It stepped from the side passage with such fluidity that it seemed to bleed into existence. Humanoid. Nearly 2 meters tall. Tattered suit, patchwork armor grafted with materials that didn't belong together. Helmet cracked across the side, visor opaque. The posture wasn't aggressive, it just stood there, motionless, head slightly tilted. Not like it was observing us, but as though it already knew who we were. Weapons were raised instantly. No threat was issued. The human didn't react. Not a twitch. Our targeting systems refused to lock on, not due to jamming, but because the system insisted there was nothing there. Visually present, yet technically absent. An impossibility we couldn't explain. I attempted contact through direct audio. No reply. One of the soldiers shouted, demanding identification. That's when it spoke. Its voice bypassed the comms entirely, vibrating directly through our suits, resonating through chest plates, not eardrums. Don't follow. Calm. Certain. It wasn't a warning. It was a statement of fact. As if the outcome had already been decided. One soldier fired. Without command, without hesitation. The pulse shot left his rifle, but halfway to the target it disintegrated into a harmless vapor trail. The atmosphere didn't ripple. No heat burst. The laws of physics simply failed the moment it neared him. A second soldier, reacting instinctively, drew a plasma blade. Before he could activate it, the blade folded inward like paper touched by flame, twisting into a corkscrew of slag that wrapped around his arm. He collapsed screaming. His suit's pain dampeners failed entirely. The human remained still. I issued a retreat order. Our exit path illuminated behind us, but gravity reversed in short pulses, forcing us to advance instead of withdraw. The corridors shifted, not physically, but perceptually. Every attempt to reroute brought us closer to the being. A psychological funnel. We were being herded. One drone drifted too close and convulsed midair. Its internal system scrambled, failing not from damage but from contradiction. It simply couldn't comprehend the proximity of the human and ceased to function. The human finally moved. Not toward us, past us. Slowly, deliberately. As it stepped by, the walls hissed and blistered, paint peeling in perfect spiral patterns. The temperature dropped 5 degrees, but our suits reported no atmospheric change. It brushed no one, said nothing further, only turned its head slightly toward me as it passed. I didn't see eyes, but I felt locked in a gaze. Not hostile. Not curious. More like recognition. As if it remembered me from somewhere I'd never been. Then it vanished. No burst. No transition. One frame it existed, the next it didn't. A soldier cried out, one was gone. No scream, no struggle. Just absence. His suit ID still pinged for several seconds before blinking out. We scrambled back to the docking hatch. The station didn't fight us, but the journey out was longer than going in. Doors were farther apart. Hallways stretched. Time felt skewed. We made it back to the ship, but the station remained lit behind us, like it had never been touched. Debriefing was a failure. All visual logs corrupted. Helmet cams played static, or replayed meaningless loops. One showed us walking in circles, which never happened. The AI refused to process any data tagged from that time window, citing paradox loop error, a classification that shouldn't exist. We tried to analyze our remaining drone. It was intact, but its memory core was filled with frames of a spiral symbol etched over and over again. No context, no metadata. The soldier who fired first required neurological purge therapy. The other one lost motor control in his left arm without any physical injury. I retained my function, but since that day, no artificial intelligence system accepts my voice print. My identity is flagged across multiple systems as fragmented. There was no confrontation. No battle. And yet every rule we thought governed reality bent that day. It didn't kill us to destroy. It changed things to remind us. This wasn't a warrior. It wasn't an enemy. It was something different, not here to fight, but to interfere when it chose to. And we were lucky. Because that was the end of the encounter. And we were still breathing. After we returned, the official stance was swift: mechanical failure, environmental hallucinations, stress-induced group psychosis. The missing soldier was listed as MIA due to atmospheric collapse. The incident was locked under classified security tiers, inaccessible even to mid-level analysts. We were told to forget it. I didn't. I tried submitting a private log to the Central Scientific Council. The system auto-deleted it and issued a wellness check request to my superior. I was marked for recalibration and temporarily suspended from off-world duties. They claimed I was exhibiting early signs of neurological strain from high radiation exposure. But my medical scan showed no irregularities. It wasn't about my health. It was about silence. During my forced downtime, I accessed archived mission records, decommissioned logs, blacklisted systems, corrupted data clusters scrubbed from public databases. I wasn't looking for humans. Not at first. I just wanted a trace of what we saw. What I found was worse. There were fragments, detached reports, redacted transcripts, misclassified signals. Scattered but similar. A mining freighter near Silius Prime vanished mid-jump. All internal recordings looped a single frame before deletion, a figure standing in a dark corridor, one hand raised. A diplomatic vessel orbiting Drethos relayed a distress signal containing no sound, just a vibration pattern that mimicked a human heartbeat. Then silence. No wreckage found. Another case listed a planet's surface restructured overnight. No weapon signatures. No meteorological cause. Satellite images caught what appeared to be a lone figure walking across the plains just before atmospheric distortion began. All shared three things: unexplained loss of time, corrupted sensor data, and sightings of a humanoid presence operating outside standard physics. I dug deeper. Through stolen clearance keys and compromised nodes, I reached a series of files marked Anthrotype red line. Not species, not threat, but a classification of anomalous lifeforms. Humans weren't labeled as sentient, they were listed under unquantifiable. Descriptions varied. Some called them transient anomalies. Others described human interaction as a variable event horizon. Everything before had continuity, everything after diverged. One entry stated simply, Survival is not guaranteed. Causality may not persist. These weren't combat warnings. They were existential ones. What chilled me was the oldest log I uncovered. It predated first contact records by centuries. A scout vessel near a collapsing neutron pocket recorded a life form exiting the core, a humanoid. No craft, no protection. It drifted toward the ship, vanished, and the next 7 days were unrecorded. When the logs resumed, the crew was dead. The lone survivor kept whispering one phrase until termination. He rewrote the end. I started to question what humans actually are. No official registry includes them in the Known Intelligent Species Index. Their origin is unverified. No homeworld, no consistent genetic database. Every sample retrieved from a human encounter is unstable, degrading in hours or mutating beyond recognition. Scans label them organic, but no two show identical biological patterns. They are not a species. They are something else. Or perhaps many things wearing one shape. Behavioral assessments are even less helpful. No two reports agree. Some depict humans as compassionate to a fault, risking themselves for strangers. Others show cold detachment and surgical efficiency in destruction. Some survive impossible conditions, others manipulate gravitational fields with tools not registered in any database. One record shows a human healing a dying alien using nothing but skin contact. Another describes one conversing with an AI that had been offline for 300 years, and reactivating it. And still, no one has ever captured one. Those who try vanish. Those who track them lose track of themselves. The most unsettling theory came from an unverified transcript buried in a forgotten server. It postulated that humans weren't native to this galaxy, or any galaxy. That they arrived not by ship, but by accident. Or exile. That they were not explorers, but remnants of something older. Something that shouldn't have survived. I no longer believe humans are visitors. I think they're intrusions. Edges of a greater fracture in the pattern of space-time, bleeding into our reality with purpose or indifference. They don't wage war. They don't demand territory. They don't negotiate. They appear where equilibrium breaks and act according to motives no one has deciphered. Some cultures now worship them. Entire systems go dark after sightings, and survivors build shrines. Others treat them like curses, destroying anything they touch. But the result is always the same: contact never ends clean. I spoke once with a former commander who'd witnessed one. His voice cracked when he described it. Not because of fear, but because it smiled at him. Said his name? A name he'd never shared. I stopped searching after that. Because it's not about understanding them. It's about knowing the limits of what should be understood. And humans, whatever they truly are, live beyond that threshold. Time passed, but the memory didn't fade. The further I got from the incident, the louder it echoed in my mind. Others moved on, reassigned, recalibrated, buried under bureaucratic noise. I didn't. Not because I was chasing truth, but because I couldn't function without it. The incident had rewired something fundamental in me. I was no longer operating on logic. I was following something older. Instinct, perhaps. After discharge, I went dark. No reports. No permissions. I linked up with an off-grid crew, scavengers, anomaly chasers, outlaws with enough curiosity to risk answers. They'd heard of humans. Not through channels, but through whispers, places where physics stalled, colonies blinked out, signals came back twisted. Most considered it nonsense. I didn't argue. I let the silence convince them. Then it happened again. A distress signal from Carroll Drift. Mining outpost, 36 personnel. The message was short, 13 seconds of static, followed by 3 words. He's back. Run. Coordinates followed. No response afterward. It matched no protocol. We jumped immediately. The station looked intact. Lights still on. Orbit stable. No visual signs of distress. But the scans were empty. No life signs. No thermal activity. Not even decay. It was as if everyone had simply evaporated. Inside, Everything was still. Food trays half-used. Terminals logged in. Clocks all stopped at the exact same second. Personal logs abruptly ended mid-entry. Surveillance systems had all recorded the same exact frame repeatedly, every corridor showing a single figure walking past, over and over, endlessly looping the same moment from different angles. We found a wall near the central reactor, where someone had carved a message directly into the alloy. No tools matched the precision. It read, "Still following?" My team was unsettled. 2 wanted to leave. I overruled them. Not out of command, out of obsession. I had to know what he was. What they were. We pressed on. The environment began to shift. Not physically, perceptually. Time started to fracture. One of the crew reported seeing his own future self walking into a room he hadn't entered yet. Another tried to speak, but his words came out in reverse. Instruments failed to agree on position. Sound stopped syncing with motion. Then he appeared again. Same height. Same suit. The visor was more fractured now, almost caved inward. He stood in a chamber we couldn't account for, wasn't on the schematic, wasn't visible from the other side. But he was there, motionless. Awaiting us. We didn't approach. We didn't speak. We just stared, and he stared back. One of my crew lost composure, raised a weapon. I told him to stop. He didn't. The trigger pull was instant, but instead of firing, the rifle inverted, barrel inside out, mechanism turning into a closed sphere. He screamed. Not from pain, but from recognition. He claimed the sphere contained his thoughts. Not memories. Thoughts he hadn't spoken. The human, or what looked like one, turned to me. No gesture, no movement, just presence. I asked what it wanted. It answered, but not in sound. The air folded inward, and I knew. Not in language. Not in concept. In certainty. It said, "A mirror reflects what you bring." We were not hunted. We were not targets. We were catalysts. Wherever they appeared, something about reality shifted to reveal what was hidden, inside systems, inside minds, inside the structure of the universe itself. Another crew member tried to leave the room. He blinked out of existence mid-step. Not transported. Erased. No digital footprint remained. All records of his birth, service, even biometrics disappeared from our systems. Only our memory retained him. As if the universe had revised its script, and we were reading from an outdated draft. Then he walked away, no urgency, no sound, just motion. The walls around him shimmered and flattened into a single vanishing point. When he was gone, the station resumed normal function. Lights stabilized. Clocks began ticking again. Temperature equalized. Our instruments came online. The nightmare had passed. Except we weren't whole anymore. We returned missing one man who never officially existed, one injured who no longer trusted his own thoughts, and me, who could no longer distinguish time as linear. Upon returning, I discovered something worse. All data we had collected was gone, overwritten by a recursive pattern that collapsed the storage format. Every attempt to describe him verbally now triggers auto-deletion or gibberish. He had tampered with memory, not to conceal, but to prevent comprehension. This wasn't an act of war. It was exposure. He wanted us to see something we were not meant to. Not about him. About ourselves. And the message couldn't be clearer: keep chasing, and you will catch yourself. Not the human. Because they are never the subject. We are. The recovery team found me adrift 4 days after the Carroll drift vanished. My vessel was intact, life support stable, but I was the only one aboard. No trace of the others. No record of who they were. Their names, biometrics, logs, gone from every database I could access. I remembered their faces. I remembered their screams. But to the wider system, they had never existed. The agency interrogated me. I gave them everything. They responded with silence. Then they classified the incident and wiped the internal networks. I was listed as compromised and placed in indefinite observation. I left before they could decide what to do with me. Now I live in the fringe, far from central systems, among those who ask no questions and believe even less. But I still send messages. Not to authorities. Not to scientists. To anyone who might one day encounter what I did. I don't share this for answers. I don't have them. I share it as a warning. Humans are not what you've been told. They are not soldiers, invaders, or ancient myths misplaced across star charts. They are fractures, living errors in the smooth pattern of reality. They don't conquer worlds. They disturb them. Wherever one appears, the natural order begins to bend. And when they leave, nothing goes back to what it was. I have watched entire colonies fall silent after one sighting. Not destroyed, transformed. Structures shift subtly. AI develop personalities. Children speak languages no one taught them. Time sync errors become normal. Gravitational fields fluctuate for no cause. Systems lose calibration forever. And in the center of it all is always the same shape, a lone figure in a suit too old to still function, visor cracked, always silent unless provoked. You may think this is paranoia. It isn't. I've verified this behavior across dozens of sectors. Each case begins with irregularities, sensors misbehaving, dreams spreading between individuals, unexplained déjà vu. Then comes the encounter. Then the data collapses. Every archive I've accessed that's ever recorded a human presence suffers corruption. Not viral. Not physical. Structural decay at the informational level. As if the mere act of documenting them pulls apart the logic of storage. They erase not by deletion, but by invalidation. Whatever we build cannot contain them, not thoughts, not words, not code. I don't think they hide their existence. I think our minds were never built to retain it. Some suggest they are the last of something that once ruled, others claim they're scouts for something worse. But all of those theories fall apart because they assume humans belong to the same cause and effect that we do. They don't. They show up at the edge of events, before disasters, after failures, during collapses of logic. Not as saviors or threats, but as constants in the storm. And what terrifies me most is how little they care. They do not explain. They do not apologize. They do not linger. They leave you with what they've changed, and they vanish. You can't kill them. Many have tried. Those who attempt it either disappear or change. Some speak in riddles after. Others forget language altogether. One high-ranking official tried to detain one once. His entire base suffered simultaneous system resets every 43 seconds for 3 days. Afterward, all personnel reported a different date of birth. No one could agree on what year it was. I've spoken to others. Survivors. We find each other quietly, over static channels and misused cargo frequencies. We don't exchange theories anymore. We trade warnings, locations to avoid, signs to recognize. We have no answers. Just shared trauma. And always the same final plea: if you see one, do not engage. I've only met one. Once. And I still dream in sequences that don't belong to me. Sometimes I remember events I never lived. Names I've never said haunt the edge of my memory. There are days where gravity feels too heavy for no reason. Nights where I feel watched through systems long disconnected. I suspect he's not done with me. You might wonder why I keep going, why I haven't vanished like the others. I think it's because I followed his instruction. I stopped looking. I stopped chasing. I stopped trying to trap meaning inside a framework meant for lesser things. He told me once, without speaking, what we were to them: reflections. Imperfect, fractured echoes of what they once were, or what they escaped. I don't know which is worse. So if you ever find yourself staring into a visor that cracks but never reveals the face, don't speak. Don't raise your weapon. Don't ask why. Just turn around and leave. I met a human once. Just once. And that was enough.